Pretend I'm in the nude. Here's me at night when I have to take a shower, and why I decided I need to make something to cover this frosted window. I'm pretty sure that even though it's frosted, when it's dark outside and bright in the bathroom, you can still pretty much see everything, and that freaks me the hell out.
Paranoia.
So while scrolling on Pinterest, I came across these beauties, and I became obsessed. Also, very shortly after, my boyfriend's dad gave me this magazine that had, guess what? The same kind of curtains.
And an article about Adam Pogue whose art I had pinned many times.
So I got curious. Why haven't I seen this before? And why don't more people have them? How are they made? Where did this style come from? Well, they're a traditional Korean fabric art called Bojagi, also known as Pojagi. Bojagi really refers to a wrapping cloth, which can be made of a variety of materials. They've been using gift wrapping as tablecloths and in traditional Buddhist rites, as traditional Korean folk religions believed it was good luck to keep something wrapped and protected in this way. Royal Bojagi or gungbo was used as royal wrapping cloths and consisted of a single fabric, while common Bojagi, minbo, or jogakbo were patched together and used by the common folk. The scraps they used were left over from making clothing. This was an opportunity for Korean women to express their creativity while also being frugal and patient because these were hand sewn. Pretty cool, right? So how hard was it going to be for me to make some with the ever-growing pile of scraps I have from sewing and trying not to waste anything? This is my bag of scraps, which I dug through like the Barney bag, using my imagination to see what I could make today. I found a few things, some small, some large, but I focused on finding colors I liked. And I ironed them because I'm good and well behaved. Doesn't it look like I'm ironing little cheese slices?
Watch as my sewing room gradually becomes a disaster zone.
Now, I wasn't sure how small I could make these, since I knew I'd have to do a double fold to make the curtain look good from both sides. I found this white curtain sample I had lying around that I figured would be a nice base color to tie everything together. Here I am testing the light in a foolish way. I was trying to show you, the audience, what the hell I was doing, but it just looks like I'm getting ready for Halloween. Here's a somewhat better light test. I just wanted to make sure everything was transparent enough to give a stained glass look. I started arranging pieces as I went, hoping to find some cohesion and taking inspiration from some of my favorite Pinterest inspo pics. So, to make a proper Pojagi or Bojagi-inspired curtain, you have to offset the seam allowance of one of the fabrics as you sew right sides together. Then you have to iron the larger seam allowance over the smaller one, open the seam, and iron both seam allowances down. Then stitch them. This is what I came to find out is called a felled seam. Without any plan, I did this pretty much over and over again, walking back and forth to the ironing board, which I won't lie, made me extremely impatient. Not only that, but I burned myself multiple times dealing with the very small seam allowances. Maybe I should have not had the iron on the steam setting. I'm blaming it on the iron, I don't know. If y'all have recommendations for irons that are smaller than this and can get in tinier spaces, please let me know in the comments. I need my damn hands. After doing this a bunch of times, I had one panel somewhat done and held it in front of one of my bathroom windows to see how it looked. By the time I had one panel done, I decided it was time to do some chain piecing because this was getting ridiculous. Did I want this project to last all year? No. So I started stitching together the American cheese. I kind of want to start streamlining this because I feel like if I don't, I'm going to lose my mind. So I've just been grabbing pieces and stitching them together, then ironing them all at the same time, then doing the hem. Because otherwise, I will have to run back and forth over and over again. And this is going to take quite some time. So I'm listening to a podcast and doing it as fast as possible. One of the major things I realized early on is that small, narrow pieces are going to be harder to deal with because, as you can see, this seam is double folded in. So if I have a really small seam, then it's going to equal 2 of these double folds, and it'll be too close together to really give that beautiful stained glass look that I'm going for. But I do know you can use old t-shirts and things like that because it's still going to be pretty transparent. I did try with some silk. First of all, I've never really sewn silk, but I think this color is really beautiful. It slips around a ton, and also when you're cutting it, it doesn't cut it into straight pieces. It meaning myself. I didn't want to buy anything new for this, but I think that the colors I chose should go together pretty well. My loose plan is to get a few quilt blocks, maybe some that are colorful, some that aren't, and then situate them on the ground and see what order I like them in. Because this one is kind of pastel, and then I have some bolder colors like the purple I just showed y'all, I'm making a few lines out of these orange pieces, and I might also want to do some shapes just to practice because I'm not a quilter, but I do like to use scraps for everything or stuff that I already have, and I want to get rid of as much as possible. So I continued piecing everything together. I was just getting used to this technique, which, spoiler alert, I ended up getting tired of. So as I've been doing this, I've been making sure to clean up the edges and keep everything straight. Some of these seams are very nice and straight, while others are wonky and wavy, but it doesn't matter because this curtain is supposed to look patchy anyway, and I've seen some that have been really well worn that look amazing after washing a bunch of times, so I'm not super worried about that aspect. I'm gonna wrap these up in a minute and show you what they look like with the light shining because we're running low on daylight. It blows my mind that these were traditionally done with hand stitching. I can't imagine that this is easy to piece together by hand. I was just thinking this would be, because I'm looking through this, I was just thinking this would be a really cool project to do with a bunch of vintage handkerchiefs, but I don't have any of those. So we're going with whatever the hell this is that I just had in my fabric stash. I have a ton of lace. I was actually thinking about using something like this in certain parts of it. I don't know if it'll go well with this one, but I might give it a try. Okay, I haven't looked yet, but honestly, I have high hopes for this. I have to go get my cat in a minute, so I'm gonna hurry up and show you. And this is my first impression as well. Wow! So it's really gonna go here. So that looks pretty good. It's really simple so far though, that's the only thing. I think I need to add more visual interest. Now it's time to get funky. So I started stitching lines and whatnot, hoping I could break up some of the homogeneity of the mostly white panel I had. When I was reading on how to do this, they were saying that you should use a reversible fabric. A lot of these are not reversible, but I don't care what's visible on the outside. I just want it to look pretty to me because I'm the one that matters in this situation. Okay, now I have one panel like this, which I think looks really nice. And I'm really inspired by this one curtain in particular. I'm gonna get some ideas from them on the different blocks they did and how they situated the color, because I've been just picking up things and going, and I feel like it would be better if I have a few parts that are more consistent. All right, I think I'm gonna try and do some little triangle pieces. I started stitching triangles together, not knowing what I was doing. This is the wrong way to do this. Well, I did that really janky. Look, I think I should probably stop for the day and look up some techniques. Something I've realized while doing this is that once you start, it's hard to stop because I'm seeing it come together and I'm really enjoying this.
Look who's home. Hey, baby. I miss you.
He thinks I'm talking to him about fabric. I always worry that he's gonna step on my pedal because this industrial goes and sometimes scares the shit out of me. Don't do it. I noticed so far that the back is not looking great, but this is just going in my bathroom, probably gonna get nasty anyway, so I'm not super worried about it. Another thing I considered that might clean this up would be to use my serger for all of the edges and then top stitch. I don't know how that would look in the light, but I do think it would be more consistent. I'm already janking it up because this is a cultural tradition that I have absolutely no experience in, but I respect it and I love everything about it. Besides how long it takes, obviously, because I again was trying to figure out how to cut corners and not do all this ironing. All right, I'm done. It's cuddle time. Why does he smell like a sneeze? The next day, I figured out the correct way to make triangle blocks, which is to stitch 2 squares right sides together around the edges and cut twice diagonally, making 4 total. The only thing about this technique is that it becomes difficult to control your seam allowances because that makes them all consistent, and we need one edge to be shorter than the other. So I used my duckbill scissors to remove some of the seam allowance from one side. This added even more time to the process. But at this point, I was still playing by the rules, so I decided to make a lot of these. Some squares I made smaller and marked one diagonal line and stitched on either side of the line, making 2 triangle blocks instead of 4. Then I had all these triangle quilt blocks.
Whoa!
And I stitched those together with some rectangles in between. I kept putting everything down on my sewing room floor, trying to decide what configuration would look good, and I wasn't really satisfied. To be honest, the color scheme was boring the hell out of me. Okay, I know I said I wasn't gonna buy anything new, but I had to get something because I'm not feeling inspired by this at all, and it's supposed to be pretty, and I think it just needed a little blue. And I solemnly vow that I will not be wasting any of this, okay? I got a few pillowcases, which isn't a lot. This one's gray, a pretty blue one. Oh, I like that. I'm acting like I didn't buy this myself. Slate blue color. This kind of blue, this, whatever the hell it is, I don't know. It has straps on it and a stain. So people are probably not gonna buy this anyway. And then this fun blue one. That also has a little sparkle on it. What if I just serge the edges? It'd be good to save time where I can, and this is already looking a little bit messy. So I might bust out the serger and try a few things with that. I also think this piece is a little bit too plain and boring, so I think I'm gonna cut it down the middle and in a few different places. Side note, sometimes when I cut the fabric with the rotary cutter, I'm really giving Kendall Jenner cutting cucumbers. I started cutting strips out of the gray pillowcase, hoping to make somewhat of a courthouse steps quilt block dupe. Then I did fake math. I decided the middle strip would be 7 inches, then reduce each outer 2 strips by 1 inch. Looking back, I wish I had done a more drastic difference in the lengths. Another idea I had was to add a little cap peeping through in the middle, so I cut the centerpiece in half and stitched with the cap fabric. Then I realized I needed something on the outside of the steps to make a rectangle. Lord knows what math I did for this. Ta-da! Having more of a plan really increased my speed as I was able to piece stitch them, iron, and top stitch in chunks. I decided I'm going to use this as the strips in between. I am going to use my serger this time because it's going to be too hard to fold over at these pieces and keep it precise. I don't know if that's a good idea, but we'll find out together. Well, she's not perfect. This one is way off, but ain't nobody perfect here. I ain't even worried about it. I'm gonna cut it into a square and then I'm gonna show y'all what it looks like up against the light.
Yeah!
I haven't looked at it yet, and I added a frame onto it. You ready? Ooh, that's pretty. So that could be like one panel of it. You see the vision? After I had that done and approved, I tried getting some inspo from this cool quilt block pin I found. And I kept going with the serging technique because 1, doing so made me not have to offset the fabric seam allowance, and 2, this is bad, but I didn't need to iron anymore either, since pulling the serges open and top stitching was possible without an iron.
Oops!
So now I have a bunch of blocks, sort of like this here, and in order to make it look a little more cohesive, I'm gonna add these bars in between, and then on the side enclose it with some more of this blue fabric. This is me using my creativity. Okay, here I am with that. And then I just remembered that I have this fabric that I want to use to jazz it up a bit. Let me say that out of all the fabrics that suck to work with, this blue pattern one was the hardest. It was stretchy and temperamental and also prone to unraveling. I added some of the blue on the bottom, and part of me is wondering if this brown even fits anymore. Okay, yeah, I do like it. I'm gonna leave that. But the red, I'm not sure about. That kind of goes too. I'm gonna just roll with it. At that point, I realized that it kind of didn't matter what colors you use because the stained glass effect makes everything match in a weird way. Do you taste what I'm cooking? Now I'm gonna start stitching them together. I want there to be a common vein, sort of. How this blue and white stripe piece right here, I want it to connect to these 2 top pieces, but then I also want to have this blue and green on the edge. I want that to connect to something more solid in the middle that connects to these 2 pieces.
Huh?
Yeah, you probably don't know what I just said, but moving on. So I stitched the blocks together and just had a little bit left to add on. Once done with that, I had finished the base of the curtain. To make sure the top had some integrity to string a rod through, I made sure to add a long strip of fabric along the top. I also bound and top stitched the edges of the entire curtain. I thought I was just going to fold over and stitch down the top fabric and stick the rod through, but of course I made that channel way too ridiculously narrow. Meaning, first off, it was way too short, and second, If I use a different rod later, it might not fit in the channel, so I decided to make loops on the top instead. I did so by cutting 5 narrow strips, folding the long edges over, top stitching, and then attaching them to the top strip of the curtain. I hung it up that night, and here's my first impression when I woke up and the sun came out. Looks good, don't it? Hell yeah! And because that was so addictive, of course, I made another within 2 days. Here's a video of both of them in my bathroom.
Ooh.
And dare I say, I have a new obsession and will 100% make more for friends and family. So here's what I learned. Silk is hard to cut and sew. So is satin. And t-shirt isn't bad, but since it's stretchy, it could end up warping the whole curtain if you're not careful. Next time, I think I'm going to stick to simple woven cottons to make things easier on myself. I need to take a quilting class, obviously. Making a curtain like this is not hard, but I didn't do things in the traditional way. If I'd stuck to the book on how Pojagi curtains are actually made, I'd hand sew and be a lot more precise. I do think that using a serger is actually not a bad idea though. I thought of another way that you could make both sides look good and still use a serger and save time, which would be to serger pieces wrong sides together and then flip those the other way, enclose that serge hem, and then top stitch it down. So I might do that for future ones. But another thing I have to keep in mind is that the fabric needs to be printed on both sides. So yeah, that's about it. I love making these and can't wait to make more. Major plus is now I can take a shower whenever I want, and nobody will see the silhouette of my naked behind. Paranoia. Let me know if there's any crafts I should try or fun sewing patterns. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.